This is Into the Story, the podcast where you learn English with true stories from all over the world. Stories that connect us and inspire you to get where you want to go. Hello, it's your host, Bree, and today things are going to be a little bit different because I am not going to be your host. I'm going to be your storyteller. So I've invited my friend Charlie Baxter from the British English podcast to step in as host. Okay, I'll hand it over to him now.
Hello there, I'm Charlie, and I'm so honoured to be hosting this special episode. In this one, we're talking about something many of us could do more often, rethinking our ideas. The organisational psychologist Adam Grant says we should treat our ideas like scientists treat their hypothesis. So instead of protecting our ideas, we should test them, question them, and sometimes even let them go. Today, we're going into the story of Bree, who you know as the host of this podcast. But this time, she's taking us behind the scenes of an idea she had.
You have to choose. If you want to do this, you need to go all in. And I know he's right, but I still feel scared. And I say, I'm all in.
By the end of this episode, you'll understand why rethinking and making changes is so important when our beliefs don't match reality.
Before Charlie goes into today's vocabulary, I've got big news. Are you nervous speaking English in public? Is this holding you back from getting the results that you want? More sales, a better job, higher income? Here's the truth. Becoming a powerful speaker is about learning the right techniques. In January 2025, my course, Public Speaking for Non-Native English Speakers, launches with simple, step-by-step strategies. I will guide you every step of the way. And because this is a personalized course working closely with me, spots are limited. If you're interested, just click the link in the show notes or visit intothestorypodcast.com/speak.
And now it's time to look at 5 words and expressions that Bree uses in her story today. The first one is lean. To bend your body slightly forward or toward something. For example, he leaned against the wall to rest. But you can also use lean in to mean actively engage or embrace something. For example, she decided to lean in and take on the new challenge at work. The next one is nod. To move your head up and down to show agreement or acknowledgement. So she nodded to show she understood the instructions. Or he gave a quick nod before leaving the room. The next is glow. Glow. This is to look happy, healthy, or full of joy, often shown through a bright smile or expression. And you could example it by saying, she glowed with happiness on her wedding day, or his face glowed when he saw the surprise party. The next phrase is to pick something out. To pick something out. This is to choose something from a group. For example, she picked out a dress for the party. Or he picked out the perfect apple from the basket. Delicious. Next one is on paper. On paper. This is how something appears in theory or on a written plan, not necessarily in practice. So, for example, the plan looks great on paper, but it might not work in real life. Or, on paper, the job seemed perfect, but it turned out to be very demanding. As always, if you would like to get the full learning pack for this episode, then you can visit intothestorypodcast.com. All right, let's get into the story.
It's a sunny December morning, and I'm standing in a community center filled with families. There's different workshops going on all day. I can see kids yoga. There's these little bodies wobbling, trying to get into downward dog poses and giggling. There's an art therapist at the back corner. She's setting up her bright paints and paint brushes. And then there's me standing next to a simple sign: the superpower of speaking English at home. I'm nervous, but in a really good way, because I love this topic. This is my chance to share my idea with real parents who want their kids to learn English. And I believe in this idea with all my heart, and I can see it helping so many families. So we all sit down on the mat, cross-legged, and I begin speaking. I know we all want our kids to learn English, I say, smiling. And then I lean in, like I'm telling them a secret. And guess what? You can do it at home. You don't need expensive courses or fancy programs. And then I walk them through simple techniques: reading English books at bedtime, singing songs, making bath time an English-only moment. And I'm watching as they're trying to listen as they bounce a baby on one leg. But after we finish, some of the parents come and speak with me. "Do you offer English classes for kids?" one parent asks. And another asks, "Do you know of any English-speaking nannies?" And I say, "You can do it yourself. That's the whole point." And they smile, but it's really clear that they want someone else to do it, an expert. And honestly, I really understand them. I have 2 little boys, and I can barely find time for a shower.
At the end of the day, as Bree tidies the mats and gathers her handouts, she decided to ignore the doubts and questions still echoing in her mind. Instead, she focuses on the power of her idea.
The next morning, I am leaning against the wall in the kitchen, drinking my coffee as my husband, Raul, is cleaning up after we've gotten our kids off to school. We're talking about the workshop and the parents' feedback and about this dream that I have of turning this idea into something bigger. Raul is really good at making complicated things simple, and he understands business and numbers and structure. So as I finish talking, he puts the last plate on the dish rack and he turns around and he says, "I'll help you make a real business plan and a real business model. But first, you have to choose. If you want to do this, you need to go all in." And I know he's right, but I still feel excited and scared. But I say, "I'm all in." And he nods and he smiles and he says, "Okay, let's get to work."
For the next 3 weeks, after their kids are asleep, Bree and Raoul sit at the dining room table with their laptops open. Night after night, they review market research, adjust budgets, and refine timelines. It requires plenty of patience, but as the days pass, they slowly shape the idea.
And finally, we have it: a polished 77-page business plan. So I send it off to a local organization that supports startups. And if they like the plan, they might invite me to join their incubator program. Now, this is a special program that helps startups with things that they need. They give you mentorship and possibly money. The next day, just one day later, I get a response. And my heart is beating so fast as I open my email and I see that I have a new email at the top of my inbox. I open it and it reads, "This is the best business plan I've ever seen." And they want us to go in the next week to talk about it. I am so excited. So the next week, I find myself in this very modern office building in the center of Barcelona. I'm sitting down and a business advisor is scrolling through the business plan. He's smiling and he says, "This is excellent. You have really done your research." And I am just glowing. I feel so proud. He continues, "I have kids, young kids, and I know how important English is. I want them to learn too. But I wouldn't do this." And that's when I stop smiling and I say, "What do you mean?" He leans back and he says, "I'm a busy person. I don't have time to follow a method to teach my kids English myself. I want to pay someone else, hire a tutor, or send them to an academy." And his words feel like a punch. And I feel like fighting back. And I kind of do. I start explaining how parents can integrate English into their daily routines, that it doesn't have to be complicated. And he listens very politely and he nods and he says, "Bree, maybe you're right, but I still wouldn't do it." And I realized that he's actually telling me kind of the same thing as the parents at the workshop. I shake his hand and I thank him for his time and I leave the office.
A week later, Bree's phone buzzes on the kitchen counter. She looks at the screen and sees an unknown number. Taking a deep breath, she answers, "Hola," and a voice on the other end delivers the news. She is accepted into the incubator program.
It actually feels the same as when I was accepted to university. I feel like I've been accepted into this new club and this whole possible future lies before me. The next week, I walk into a classroom where they teach us about customer validation and product market fit. The incubator coaches encourage me to talk to more parents and see if there's a real market. And by the end of the program, I'm going to have to present my idea to a room of judges who will decide if it's worth backing.
And as the program's end gets closer, Bree's pitch day is coming fast. In these last days, she's nervous. She keeps imagining herself on that stage, bright lights shining and everyone watching.
So I called my friend, who always looks like she's just stepped out of a fashion magazine, and she picked out clothes for me that made me feel professional and confident. And after that, I threw myself into preparing. I wrote and I rewrote. I changed tiny little details on my slides until my eyes were nearly crossed. And I recorded myself, and then I recorded myself again. Of course, all of this is happening in Spanish, and speaking in Spanish made it harder. There was this one phrase I'll never forget, "una herramienta," a tool, that I kept messing up. And after about 100 times, I just had to change the words entirely. By 11 p.m. the night before, I was done. I had to be done. So I sent it to the program director and I finally got some sleep.
Bree arrives early on pitch day. She stands in a quiet hallway, focusing on the simple task of filling her water bottle.
I'm pacing back and forth. I have my hands on my hips and I'm actually saying out loud to myself, "You've got this." I step through the giant doors and I see a room full of people, the 4 judges sitting at the front. I remember the lights feeling very hot on my face. I can see that the slides are already on the screen. I start walking to the stage. And in that moment, all I could think about were my hands. Suddenly, they felt strange, like they didn't belong to me. And I thought, what if I just hang them at my sides? Would I look like a gorilla? Or if I try putting them in my pockets, maybe that would seem too casual. And I have these crazy thoughts racing through my mind as I stepped up on the stage. And in that moment, a woman hands me this small remote control that's to change the slides. And suddenly I feel this intense relief. My hands have a job to do. I close my eyes and I take a deep breath and I begin to speak. Good morning, buenos días. Todos sabemos la importancia que tiene el inglés. Everyone knows how important English is. And the words just flow. And I can feel that my body language is right. I can see the audience leaning in. And I even spot my speaking coach standing at the back of the room, and he's nodding and smiling. When I finish, I know that I have nailed it. And I walk back to my seat, and my heart is still racing, and I sit down next to Raul, and he leans to me and he says, "That was amazing."
Then they ask everyone to step out. The judges need time to talk and decide.
Maybe it was 5 minutes, but it felt like 5 hours. Then the door just slightly cracks open and they invite us to come back in. We come back in, we sit down, and I see the woman stand up on the stage and she's about to say the winner. And it's not me. And my heart sinks and my face burns as I force a smile and I clap. And afterward, my coach comes up to me and he says, "Bree, your pitch was the best, but your business idea just isn't what they were looking for." And I've been hearing this since the workshop. And the advisor who praised the business plan but said he wouldn't use it. But I just refused to listen. In the days that follow, I feel empty, like a balloon with no air. But in that quiet space, I see the truth. My idea looked great on paper, but real people didn't want it. Adam Grant says that every idea is a hypothesis, not a fact. It's a hypothesis, and we must test it. Instead of protecting our ideas like precious objects, we should treat them like science experiments. Sometimes even the best ideas cannot survive questions and challenges, and those aren't the right ideas. That's when it's time to rethink and try again.
It's a good practice to rethink ideas, test and question. Yes, it's tough when it's your own idea, but think of yourself as a pilot high in the sky. If new information tells you something's wrong ahead, do you ignore it or do you change course? Of course, you change course. A pilot who doesn't rethink is just dangerous, right? Bree Aesie, the host of this podcast, specializes in helping non-native English speakers improve their speaking skills through storytelling. She's a communication coach with over 10 years of experience and co-founder of AC English School. I'm Charlie, signing off. Now back to Bree for a final word.
Thanks so much for listening. This is the final episode of Season 6. I'm busy working on season 7, and I'll be back next month with new stories. Don't forget to follow the show so that you never miss a new episode. And if your goal is to speak English with impact and influence, join my free newsletter at intothestorypodcast.com, where you'll also find free learning packs for each episode. And if you're enjoying the podcast, support the show for free by leaving a 5-star rating on your favorite podcast app. I really appreciate your support. Okay, that's all for today, folks. Until the next time, I hope that you have a good time, or at least a good story to tell.